No, thanks for inviting me.
Yes.
Have me back on again.
We will.
Okay.
And look, we always like to end the program with a meaningful quote. George, what is yours?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite verses, and it comes from Isaiah 9, verse 2. Here's what it says. It says, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned." Beautiful.
Yes, that's a great quote and a great way to end the show. Through Jesus, a great light is coming that will overshadow the darkness of this world. Now, before we close, we want to encourage our viewers to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can watch this and lots of exclusive content. New episodes drop every Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. On behalf of Muyiwa and all of us here at TPI, goodbye and God bless you.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. We're broadcasting live from our global headquarters in the nation's commercial knife center, Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Jeffrey Uzango.
From Lagos, Nigeria, I am Kelly Egiga. The words of Bukola, welcome to your perfect morning starter.
Bukola is in Faro, Malaysia. That's why she's not here.
Yeah.
We'll get to know exactly what's playing out outside the shores of our country. But The big things happening. What are you tracking today, man?
Well, let me begin perhaps with sports for Arsenal fans. I'm not an Arsenal fan, but I'm just happy for Eberechi. That's because he got a hat-trick yesterday. And of course, I want to see more from him. But I mean, the big one yesterday was the security meeting between Mr. President and the service chiefs, where it was an impromptu meeting, we understand. It was an impromptu meeting yesterday, Mr. President's meeting with the service chiefs, and he has now ordered that police officers be withdrawn from VIPs. They are now to return to their core duties of policing at the various communities. This looks like bad news for the VIPs, of course, and looks like good news for the people on the other side of things. Have we been down this road before? Of course, yes, we are. The VIPs perhaps would argue that, you know what, if you provide a safe environment for me, I do not need to hire police officers to protect me and my family and my interests and all of that. So that's a question mark perhaps for the government of the day. But personally, am I impressed by this decision? I would say no, I'm not impressed, Mr. President. Here are my reasons. You have withdrawn the police officers from VIPs, yes. What happens to the military guys who also protect VIPs? who also protects the properties of VIPs. Remember, it was A.M. Yerima who was protecting the property of a former naval chief. So if our military men have been reduced to protecting even properties and all of that, even the DSS as well. We have DSS as well who are also security detail for private citizens or individuals. I remember a story somewhere along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. There's a tank farm somewhere where some military officers, you know, were protecting this particular tank farm, and a driver parked just outside on the road where that tank farm is. Those military officers had to go the extra mile, as much as, you know, shooting at him when he was trying to explain that he didn't know that he couldn't park there. So that's what some of our security official agencies and officials have been reduced to. So personally, I'm not impressed. Maybe Mr. President will also have to withdraw some of these DSS and military officers, you know, who protect VIPs and all of that. But in all, let me say this, because as Mr. President has done this, I'm not sure if he's also going to reduce his own security detail as well. Yes, I know the DSS are really around him. The police officers as well are also around him. Is he also going to withdraw some of those security officers as well? The implementation of this, how is it going to work? Am I optimistic? No, I am not, Mr. President. And I'm sure that perhaps you can do more. Perhaps your body language shows that you want to improve things, you want to improve the state of our state of security in this country, but I think, Mr. President, you have to do more. There are also questions as to why were you not in Kebbi, for instance? Why have you not visited Niger State? The campaigns are coming, and all the presidential candidates, you see them moving the 36 states. Some would even go as far as going to those states on two occasions before the elections. But I think that we expect more from this particular presidency and current administration, because indeed for many Nigerians these are not very interesting times. Jeff?
Well, the president has chosen to do, he had promised, if you look at the renewed up agenda of the president in the 80-page, which I have read through literally almost everything, this promise has been made as to empowering the NSCDC to do this work that the police now does for the VIPs, so that the police will be removed from this protection of VIPs and all of that. So we're yet to see the implementation, because this is not the first time we're hearing about withdrawing VIPs. So when I hear these things, I don't take it serious until I see implementation, because it's not the first to say it. They keep saying it over when there's pressure. Let's see it happen first and foremost. But beyond that as well, I'm happy. I'm sure you're also aware that about 50 of the students or children that were abducted in Niger State have now been released or been freed. In fact, the language that was used initially, that they escaped. That was very curious for me. And then the Kwara abductees, the ones that were abducted around the church, they've also been freed. Now, the big question, I agree with everybody who is asking, as much as we celebrate, and I'm super excited, and we want everybody that has been abducted to be free, what has happened to the terrorists or the people who abducted them? We don't have any information. Were they killed or neutralized, as the language is used? Have they been arrested? What exactly? Or did the government pay ransom? You cannot just go, people that have been abducted, and these evil geniuses, these evil cowards who go by whatever name and nomenclature, will just hand them over to you. It doesn't work like that. Nobody will believe that. So what has happened? So we need full disclosure from the government. We're seeing them, they've been freed, they've been released. Thank you for your effort. There is also another conspiracy theory as to whether this is done to show that government can, you know, recover abductees as quickly as possible to ward off Trump. Well, that conspiracy theory is out there. But for me and for a lot of Nigerians, now that you have released them from Niger and Kwara, what happened to the people who abducted them? We need to know what exactly happened to them. Did you negotiate with them? Was their ransom paid? Or you killed them? Or you arrested them? Something has to be done, because we cannot just be talking about victims without talking about the perpetrators. It's time for us to begin to hold government to account, to make sure that these perpetrators are brought to book and they face either death or life sentence, whichever the law prescribes. And so that is the latest that is coming. So you can see, maybe we'll take a listen to, well, maybe not. Whenever we have the opportunity, we'll listen to the people that are speaking that have been released, or their family members that were so excited they've been released. So that is the latest as far as the abductees are concerned. 50 or 51 or so from Niger State, 38 from Kwara State. And then, of course, there's another thing I would like us to address today, and that is, of all the conversations we've been having, whether on air, from the presidency down to U.S. Congress subcommittee on what is playing out in Nigeria, we need to be brutally honest with ourselves to solve this problem. Will I say once and for all, or a long-lasting solution in that sense? Kelly, I found out that there are 4 confluences that are true as far as this crisis is concerned. That is why some people who are fair in the analysis will say it's a complex problem. Yeah. Some are complex, some are not as complex. You can't oversimplify it as well because there are different drivers and different factors. Factor number 1 for this surge and this insurgency we've been dealing with is that you cannot debate that there is no Christian genocide perpetrated by Islamic extremists in Nigeria. That's one leg of the problem. There is. You can debate whatever you want to debate. It's fine. But the people who are the receiving end have constantly said, we are targeted. And genocide has nothing to do with scale of fatalities or casualties. It has to do with intent. There are Islamic extremists who want to force people to that religion. And it's not going to be acceptable because the Nigerian state will not support that. So is this state backed? I don't believe so. Is the state doing enough to deter these terrorists? Maybe not. One of my best friends in university, Abdul, was a Muslim. So there is arguably Christian genocide in part of the north. That's one leg of the problem. There's also the economic part. Head of farmer crisis, driven perhaps by climate change. We cannot dismiss that. That's an economic problem, and that may not be sorted by might. That has to be by some level of negotiations and resolution, depending on where you're looking at, maybe in the Benue Plateau area. That we cannot dismiss. That is not also true that farmer header crisis is really a problem, and this is purely economic. This is purely climate change and the expanded conversation around that. There's also the interplay of geopolitics, which is a driver. Geopolitics of the big boys around the global world trying to extract our minerals, and we're like pawns in the system and all of that. That may be a bit more complex to deal with, and maybe negotiation will solve that as well as far as this matter is concerned. But there's also another leg, which is criminality, pure criminals who are just killing people and maiming people and destroying lives and making the state unstable and unsafe for governance. These, for me, are the 4 things that are driving, and I believe all of them are true. Some will be by some form of sitting down on the table and negotiating. Some will be the full might of the state coming against them because the intent is clear, the state is clear, and the constitution now to deal with them. So to deny one over the other, now that does not mean Muslims are not killed in the process. That's why I itemize the entirety of what have been the conversation in the U.S. Congress, in Nigeria, and all of that. But to deny one so that you elevate the other is not true. In all, what we're saying is that these killings has to stop.
It does.
Christians, Muslim, non-believers, whoever, the state must rise to protect our people. That is what people want. So today, what are we going to do on the program? First, we're going to look at the state of the nation, of course. Perhaps throughout the week, we're going to be talking insecurity, the economy. Bible Rodsvival is governorship candidate of the Labour Party, who is now in ADC. He'll be joining us to look at the state of the nation. And then from there, we'll move over to the Nnamdi Kanu case. Of course, Nnamdi Kanu has now been convicted on the 7-count charge, and he's been sentenced to life imprisonment, and that has generated a lot of conversation. One of his consultants will be joining us as well to x-ray the issue that happened last weekend right here in Nigeria. And from there, we'll look at the state of the nation, especially security from the eyes of the civil society group. Is governance failing in Nigeria? Is government doing enough to protect our people? Well, civil society will help us break it down. Governance and national security. And that's the outlook on the program today. It's going to be a good time for you to sit back and let's have a great conversation right here on the Morning Brief. For now, we'll take a short break. We'll be back, and Adeni Fetayo will be joining us from Joburg, South Africa, to help us break down what the dailies are leading with. In just a moment, stay with us. right, so Mr. Denny Ifetayo is a publisher of Megastar Magazine, a journalist. Mr. Ifetayo, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here once again.
Perhaps let's start with the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with international pressure mounts on FG as states close schools over kidnapping. International pressure mounts on FG as states close schools over kidnappings. That's a page 6 read on the Guardian newspaper. What do you make of this, sir?
Yeah, first and foremost, let me even congratulate the family whose their children, their family have joined them. And I think state government closing of school is not the best way to go about it. That's to show that maybe they are not winning the war as they claim to be. And of course, I would have expected them that they should deploy more security personnel around those schools or some volatile area or community that they feel that they are prone to some of these terrorist attacks. I think that sometimes, maybe because of the international community, they are looking at our direction, like what we say in our local parlance, that to call out the federal government that they are not doing enough. Just like you said, I was listening to you, that it's not just for some of those children, whether they were released or they fled from their captor or they escaped, whatever the guys is. What about those people who perpetrated the act? What are they doing? They should do more to show that, yes, the pressure from international community or from America, so to say, Donald Trump, that yes, we are doing much more to make sure that we take care of our own security challenges, you know. So the pressure is good so that they can sit up and do what they need to do. Maybe if it were to be that America is not looking at our side, they will have relaxed about it, or you and I know that we are in this country when something will be happening at home and some of our past presidents will take a trip to a foreign country, and why you cannot have your house is on fire or your roof is on fire and you want to be at ease. But anyway, whatever it is, if we need more of the international pressure on federal government so that they can, you know, do their job, so that they can get serious about what they are elected to do, which is number one priority, to keep to keep people safe and also protect our community and borders.
Mr. Fetcher, I mean, I'm just wondering, perhaps, you know, how dependent we are on the international community. You know, it goes to show perhaps just how, you know, we are not really independent as sometimes we claim to be. But let's head on to the New Telegraph here as well. It stays with issues around insecurity as well. ISWAP abducts 12 female farmers in Borno. But perhaps we can look at what played out yesterday. Tinubu orders withdrawal of police officers guarding VIPs. A big decision indeed for Mr. President, some would say. But the why you look at the major rider there, and of course Mr. President's decision to withdraw police officers for VIPs. I'm not sure where exactly we stand in terms of winning the war. On one side, we hear students have been released or recovered or escaped. On the other hand, 12 farmers have been kidnapped somewhere in Borno State.
Yes, you know, we identify some states, especially in the northern part of Nigeria, where we are having challenges. And to me, just like I said, was it last week, I said that even some of our police, the federal government, they still need to recruit more. Even the state government, we're talking about state police. Security is a challenge that we need to tackle if we want to enjoy any form of peace or coexistence in Nigeria or any state for that matter. And of course, I said that if you have a challenges or what something has happened, what can we do, you know, to prevent reoccurrence of this thing in the future? You know, kidnapping is not new to us. So what are the government, what can we do to put a stop to this thing? And just like we are saying, we are talking about these people, they have a sponsor. They have those who finance them. Can you imagine over 300 children were kidnapped? Are they going to take them on foot? No. Buses are going to be provided. So who is buying the buses? You know, those are the things they should look into, and also to invest more when it comes to, we are talking about artificial intelligence, you know, the cameras and all of that that can be installed, you know, community policing, you know, partnership with vigilante and all of that, the local, you know, those are the things that I think government needs to do. It's not today we'll be hearing of kidnapping, whether they are farmer or not farmer is another thing. And we're talking about hunger in the land, you know, food, you know, these are the things that the government needs to, you know, prioritize. Yes, I'm glad that Mr. President withdrew some of the police officers said, well, you can have access to civil defense, you know, to protect you in case you need anyone. But because we know that the number of policemen guiding our nation, they are grossly inadequate. They should do more when it comes to intelligence gathering and also shaming those who are behind these evil acts, whether they belong to their party or they do not belong to their party, not because see your many sins, but once you join us, you work for us, you know, your sins are forgiven. You know, we should not politicize the issue of kidnapping because it's getting worse by the day and it does not allow foreign direct investment to come because they'll be shying away where there's no security, investment cannot thrive.
All right, Mr. Fatai, we'll stay with the New Telegraph. It has a lot of things we can binge on before we go to other papers. Let's see how quickly we can do that. Two things I would like you to speak to. Just above that, below that nameplate, where you can see the FIRS boss, Zach Adedeji, where it talked about FIRS warns against politicizing tax administration, debunks Atiku's claims on revenue collection. And now this has to do with the bringing on board of one of the collecting agents for the federal government. You know, 2026 is going to be a lot of tax conversation besides the elections coming on. And Alhaji Atiku Abubakar had raised concern that this is almost, is it connected or looks like a back route to Alpha Beta, which has been a controversial issue as to who owns it, whether it's owned by the president, whether it's his conduit, or there are so many things. You know a lot about Alpha Beta every other year because it's a problem. I don't know why we cannot unravel it once and for all. Anyway, what he's saying is that the government should not go through this middleman situation of always collecting taxes, that the system is efficient enough. Of course, when middlemen come in, they have their own commission or their payment system. As far as tax collection is concerned, he's seeing it as a conduit to politically exposed persons for state capture. And well, the FIRS has come to say that's not exactly. In fact, don't politicize this. Leave us to do our work. Should we leave them? Should they leave them to do their work? Or there's a valid argument from Atiku Abubakar?
No, there's a valid argument. Just you mentioned Alpha Beta, the one as regard to collection of revenue or tax in Lagos State. You know, they are saying it. You know, not just when you are doing something that gives room for people to question the act or rationale behind it, people will definitely speak. So my own is that, was it transparent? What are the processes leading to the middleman or the consultant they want to get? I think the issue of consultancy should be on the basis of advice, not to execute the main project that you want to do. Oh, this is what we intend to do. We want to generate more funds. We want to bring more people into the tax force so that they can, you know, pay their tax. What are the things that you think we need to do? Pay the person, but saying the third party or middleman, of course, is going to take his own commission, and we are clamoring, we are borrowing money, you know, every now and then to, you know, to fund some infrastructure project and all of that. And you need more money, not that you know, asking someone to come and be in charge and even take chunk of the money. But Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, you know, he's saying the obvious. And of course, we need to put our torchlight into that and let the man in charge of our tax to come out and say, this is the process that led to, you know, picking this, and this is the reason why we need it. It's not about being politicized, but if you do something and you give room for question, people will definitely talk.
Okay, before we go to the next, I told you that there are some things on the, because I think the company has literally taken over the front page of almost all the dailies, so we just have limited things. But there's just above that nameplate, above the nameplate of the new Telegraph, you see something that everyone should pay attention to. Telecom, according to the telecoms companies, hostile states to lose out in potential $1 billion investment windfall. Hostile states to lose out because telecoms companies, they've been complaining of the business environment in Nigeria and sometimes in certain states where there's multiplicity of levies and fees. I think it came to about 30-something or 40-something when we spoke to them here. And they said, look, this is not good. In fact, they pay for, they call it, is it effervescence fee? I've forgotten the right name, more like the smoke that their generators produce at their base stations. They pay as much as that. You know, when they bring their diesel or whatever to their base station, as you're traveling, area boys will collect, maybe police will collect as you go to the village. Everybody wants to collect one way or the other. So what do you think is the big message here, and how should states react to this concern by the telecoms company?
First and foremost, I think those particular states that will be affected should do more what I call reorientation, you know, engaging their people, the host community, wherever all those masts are being placed or erected. Because just like you said, they are going to lose out, and it's not good for them, because every day we communicate for our businesses, for family, for religious purpose, whatever it is, there's always a communication and talking about data, making the world a global village so that you can have an access. So I'm sure they should lay down the figures to them, and of course they should talk to their people, especially the local government can help in these issues, so that they can look at it. When this infrastructure comes, it's going to create more jobs, it's going to make our state, our local community more viable or attractive to businesses and investment, you know, so that people can do their work and all of that. So local government need to come in and talk with the state government as well. Look at the investment that is coming. If it comes, there are going to be substation, people who are supplying, you know, diesel, the tanker driver, the filling station, and so it's snowballed to so many. It's not just the mass to come and, you know, erect the mass or come and fuel it or the generator. So there are a lot of value chain that are attached to it. So they should let people see to it and be transparent. And of course, all those communications companies as well, in terms of CSR too, they should take it to the locals, not just recharge 1,000 and you might design out of 20 million, so maybe one person will win a car. No, go to the local, the host community, and do some form of empowerment, some form of enlightenment, so they will feel belong, because they felt that anytime you come around, whether to fuel the generator or to restore something, it's just for their time, you know, to get from what they term the national cake. So more of orientation, more of CSR in those host communities, and of course the government, they should do more to talk to their people so that they look at the value chain of what that meant to the state and the local government as well.
Well, let's get to switch gears to the international daily independence, rather. MPC faces tightrope walk as inflation pressures mount. This leads with the economy. The Monetary Policy Committee of the CBN there faces tightrope walk as inflation pressures mount. And I mean, Mr. Feta, we're getting to that point of the year, really, December, when the prices of goods and services always gets to skyrocket. But I wonder what you perhaps see playing out here. There's the pressure, of course, on the CBN and the leadership, as well as the Tinubu administration, especially as we continue to build up to the 2027 elections.
Yeah, one of the things that the government can do to, you know, take all the even pressure apart from the masses, and first and foremost, most of all those banks, you want to get a loan, almost double figure, not almost double figures, you know, and they can say, okay, from maybe Ember month or from November, December, January, that whatever loans that we are giving to, you know, so as to mitigate against inflation, can you bring it down with 5%, you know, let the number be reduced so that people can breathe a fresh air. And as well, I'm still an advocate of they should do more of our mineral resources. They should let it be sourced for, let it be gotten with our local currency so that naira can be more, sought after in international markets. I was telling someone that, coming to, for example, coming to Joburg, I have to change naira to dollar. And when I'm leaving tomorrow, when I got here, I changed the dollar into rands, and I'm going back, I will do the same process, which makes me lose almost 20 to 25% of the money to someone who does not know that I'm in existence. You understand what I'm saying? So let our mineral resources be sold in naira so that the pressure, because our market is being dollarized, so to say. So the pressure on monetary policy committee, talk to some of these banks, lower, and even transportation company, a kind of subsidy. The federal government can say for the the next 2 months, I'm not saying tax holiday total percent, 50% reduction, just here and there that can make people to breathe and mitigate against inflation, so that purchasing power could be high as well, so that people can say yes, they are contributing, they are feeling the impact of government, because just like you said, December is here, things will begin to go higher from food, commodity, from household commodity, transportation, people who are traveling to meet their loved one, back in the village or at home. So those are the things. Even in aviation, talk to the airlines, give them a kind of incentive so that they can reduce maybe 20%, 30%. I know some states in Nigeria, especially Lagos State, that people who are traveling to the east, or within, let's say, Christmas Day and New Year Day, that all those land bus, or what do they call them, is free, just to make sure that people have a sense of belonging. You have taken so much from people from January to November. Just give them some things to, to breathe. It will serve as a mitigation against inflation. And those people too can have a means of making sure that our monetary policy too is in betterment, or decision they are making is in betterment for the people of Nigeria.
All right, Mr. Feta, just before we let you go, 2 more things on the pages of the Daily Independent. Word from the president on monitoring security situation nationwide. Tinubu assures. That's a page 29 read on the Daily Independent. Reassuring words from the president?
Yeah, so to say, let's just say I want to commend him that he's not back on coming to G20, so that I said he was monitoring the situation, getting real-time feedback, because sometimes leadership is by example. When the nation is burning down and you take a trip, of course, those people you put in charge of security, they are meant to relax as well. So monitoring the security situation, getting bit by bit information and making decisions, because if he's not on ground or he's not talking to the chiefs, the service chief, who knows? But since they are getting some results, I should feel that they should just go ahead. Mr. President should do more by mentioning people who are behind this evil, who are behind this kidnapping. At least you said some, whether they were released or escape, or the government, the security agencies, they have done fantastic job. Who are the people that were arrested in the process? Who are the people negotiating for them? Who are the ransom paid, or they are not paid? Who receive it? How do you track these people? So that we can't have a state within a state. Monitoring situation, I'm feeling that monitoring security, I'm feeling that just to make sure Nigeria is safe. So for me personally, I just felt that Mr. President can do more by naming those people who are behind this evil, who are perpetrating this evil of kidnapping, and making sure our state is safe.
Yeah, Mr. Feta, just if you can do this in 1 minute. If we go to the Daily Monitor, one of the, of course, the big story, but just above that, below the nameplate, one of the inside stories there, DHQ probes claims of troops withdrawal before Kebbi school abduction. The Kebbi State Governor, Nasser Idris, had complained that who gave the order for the withdrawal of troops, because apparently they had intel. And not too long, I think barely 1 or 2 hours after the troops left, that's when these, whether it's terrorists or bandits, whoever they are, struck and took away those 25 schoolgirls. I just want you to speak on that, just in 1 minute.
Yes, I think the government should be transparent about it. In fact, the governor said 30 minutes, that means there's an inside information. That means there's someone who is leaking information or selling out our troops. So that should be investigated, that should be made public, in fact, so that to serve as a deterrent. It's not a time to be shielding one highly placed individual, no matter how or the party it belongs to, whatever. They should make it public, and Nigeria want to see the end of the investigation. And that also will boost the confidence of the people who are even giving the, information or whistleblowers, as the case may be. Because for government to make such a statement, and it also shows that the military, they've confirmed that we are going to investigate, not just do the talk, but walk the walk.
Adeniyi Fetayo, thank you so much. Adeniyi Fetayo is a publisher of Megastar Magazine, a journalist joining us from Joburg, South Africa. Thank you. We appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, we'll take a break and we'll get to the very first conversation for today. State of the Nation, Gbadebo Rhodes Vival, for the former Labour Party governorship candidate in Lagos State, will be joining us to x-ray the state of the nation, bordering especially on security and partly the economy. Joining us in a moment. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. Let's get to head now to our very first conversation this morning as we look at the state of the nation from the lens of those in the opposition. Mr. Gbadebo Rhodes Vival joins us live on the program, former Labour Party governorship candidate. He joins us live here from Lagos. Mr. Vival, I'm not sure what your new designation is in the ADC, but let's begin with what has played out in very, very recent times. The abductions, the kidnaps, the shutdown of schools, as we hear and see in Niger and Kebbi states. I'm just wondering, from the opposition camp and your standpoint, what exactly are you seeing and hearing?
Well, for us, it reflects a failure in this government. The fundamental responsibility of government is protecting life and property. And experiencing and seeing these things all start to increase, or maybe just the media reporting it a lot more, because there's been a lot of killings all across the Middle Belt. There's been a lot of abductions that have been happening before Donald Trump made the statement that he did. And what is very painful to see is that we have a government that has not really valued human life. They've always solved for the next election. And this did not just start now. Far back as 2018, 19, 22, 2022, 2021, where herdsmen were terrorizing most of the Southwest, the current president was quiet. He's known to have gone on TV and said, where are the cows, when he went to condole with Fasoranti. So there's been silence to the pain and the wailing of Nigerians that have been plagued with this herdsmen and this terrorist killing and actions. And also, you see that continue to government up until when Donald Trump came out and said what he said, which still holds true because, again, they are solving for the next election. We've not heard or seen the president be so responsive or communicating, whether it's just performative, but we've not seen it. I recall when there were killings in Benue, and the president was supposed to go there and condole with them. On a visit that was supposed to be a visit for mourning, we had people lined up on the streets praising him as he came in, and then to later hear that he could not make it to the location. Number one citizen could not make it to the location of these killings. Just goes to show the value that this government puts on the Nigerian life. And that is the thing that needs to fundamentally change, because it reflects on the resources that are spent. It reflects on how you treat people that have failed to protect the Nigerian life. Just recently, on this show, you were talking about the Kebbi government, talking about how the military ordered withdrawal of troops before kidnappers came in. This has been going on in Taraba, in Gombe, in several states. Yes, who has been brought to account?
All right.
Right? Who has been brought to account? And you see, you even look at the quality in the decision-making that appointed the Minister of Defense. This is a man that has an EFCC case. This is a man that woefully failed in ensuring security in Zamfara. And you see that the decision-making, again, they're not solving for the well-being or the security of the nation. They are solving for the next election.
Yes.
And this is what's determining who they are pointing into what, how they handle these things. And until Donald Trump started talking about it, there was no spotlight on it.
Yes.
The deaths of Nigerians were met with silence from the government.
Yes.
Right? So it's a wholesome failure that betrays the fact that this government came in to enrich themselves and for position, not in the interest of the people.
All right. So it means you're not buying into all of the moves by Mr. President. He had to boycott the G20 meeting in SA. He had to also shut down some other international trips just to be present.
Why
here in the
did
country.
He have to take a foreign president?
You're not
put him on the tools to start doing things like this.
And that leads me to my next question, really, Mr. Rosevival. So this decision from the U.S. president to perhaps intervene, which we can see that it has changed the body language of the current administration. I'm not sure which side of the divide you stand, but I know you're in the opposition. So do you support the fact that indeed we need the help, we need the intervention of the U.S. and the U.S. president, Mr. Donald Trump, to come to Nigeria and help us solve this problem? Is that where you stand?
We need our government to sit up and do their job. Their job is protect lives and property. It is an absolute disgrace that a foreign president had to make these statements for them to start to sit up. We want to see less performative action and more real actions, holding the military accountable for their failures, investing heavily in the military, investing in intelligence gathering, ensuring that the president is empowering the military, creating exercises and incentives that boost their morale, right? Not sending people to the war front completely, they are not armed properly, ensuring that we have proper intelligence to marshal our troops. And this is something that we need to see. It cannot just be performative, cancelling a visit here, cancelling a visit there. The quality of our ministers, the quality of our people that are gathering information, we need to start to deliberately, intentionally highlight who is financing the terrorism. How are they getting intelligence? What is our own intelligence structure? Why do they seem that they are always a step ahead of us? What level of surveillance are we doing? In today's day, we have drones. We need to invest in that to survey, get information, and be ahead of them, right? How are their supply lines being managed? How do we break those supply lines? These are intentional things we expect a government to do. It would be a disgrace as an African, as a proud African, as a proud Nigerian, that as a people, a great nation that we can be with all the potential and intelligence that we have to depend on somebody else to come and protect us. A people that have gone through enslavement, a people that have gone through colonialism, they don't understand that they need to have a robust vision and strategy to secure their borders. So it's a failure on this government, and it highlights their lack of care for the Nigerian life. That's what has just been brought to the fore. But right now, I stand to say that the government must step up. It's time to put their selfish interests aside, time to put aside their focus on the next election, on destroying the opposition, on waging a war that is using violence against the opposition, right? To actually start to address these issues and focus on putting the people first and uniting the nation. You cannot run a tribalistic, bigoted system to electioneer your way into office and then expect people will come together and rally behind you. Now is the time to start reaching hands out, standing against bigotry, uniting people. We have in Lagos, I'm sure you saw the NURTW threatening deaths on opposition parties. They need to step up to that plate so that everybody can be united and focus on putting people first. These are things that we need to see, not people constantly taking pleasure in the destruction of opposition. Meanwhile, your people are dying. Mothers are crying.
All right,
Whole villages are being mass buried.
Mr.
And yet we have silence from you up until Donald Trump started to speak. So we need to see the government step up to their responsibility.
All right, Mr. Rosviva. So if you, let me allow you, what will be your postulation? So kidnappings has been on the rise. Mass abduction is what I like to call it recently. And then we've seen the release. I don't know the language. The first language I heard was they escaped. That was a bit curious for children and all of that to escape. But the language is freed. Kwara, the church incident in Kwara, that 2 people were killed, the 38 that were abducted have now been free. So that is some breath of fresh air. That's some good news. What are your postulations as to the reason for the recent surge in mass abduction?
Well, strategically, some have opined that abducting so many children will make either a foreign military operation harder because they cannot just unilaterally bomb the place, right? So they're using them as human shields. Some have postulated that. Another way of looking at it might be with this new attention that Donald Trump has brought to this particular scenario. The media is publicizing it and reporting on these incidents a lot more. Similar situation with COVID. As you remember, the media focused on it and it had national attention and global attention. And then at a point, they decided we're not going to focus on it anymore. It could be the spotlight has been put on this situation, and now the government is having to stand up and answer to it. It's not as if these things have not been happening. It's just the government has been lackadaisical about it up until Donald Trump's commentary on it. So that is my opinion. I think it's either strategically human shields, the media also paying more attention to it, or the media being liberated to speak on it. The government also engaging this particular situation as opposed to just sweeping it under the carpet.
There's also the talk about the speed of rescue. In fact, I've heard all kinds of conspiracy theories, but since it's out there, let's just speak to it. I think it was one of the fire shades that put it together. And I think the big question here is as to the quick release of these children, which we're very excited about. Some are saying, oh, it's part of strategy to ward off the United States Army from coming in. I don't think a lot of people, I don't know whether you answered the question as to whether you would like the United States Army to come in and do what they said they would do or not, because we know there's a wider interest and we don't know the scale of that wider interest. So that's why everybody's a bit hesitant to that help, except maybe the people who are at the forefront of, at the receiving end, who, wherever the help is coming from, is inconsequential. Whatever long-term interest is none of their business. They just want to stay alive. So my question would be to you on this talk about the speed of recovery of this or rescue of the children, and then the bigger question of what has happened to the people who abducted them.
Well, the government in relation, see, we have a situation where there's a credibility crisis with this government. They've governed with a lot of propaganda. So it allows a lot of room for conspiracy theories. I am happy that children that just woke up in the morning to go to school and experience this kind of terror are free. I'm happy about that. How that happened, we cannot confidently answer that. Whether people have come out and talk about paying ransom to these terrorists, to these bandits, who then use these funds to even further strengthen their base, strengthen their ammunition, strengthen their supply chain, and that is not in our interest. I feel that it's important that there are consequences to engaging in this activity, and the government must handle its military with all sense of seriousness and all sense of purpose. The Nigerian life must start to be held with such value that it's not about tribe. The fact that you're a Nigerian and your life can be assaulted like this, there must be severe consequences to pay. Until we get to that kind of mindset, these things will continue to happen. Terrorists will continue to be emboldened, and we'll continue to see things happen like this. So these are some of the issues.
All right.
In relation to I think you talked about that, and you talked about what has happened to them so far. We've heard reports, we've seen reports where they're saying that they've gotten or arrested some people, but then you also see a number of these terrorists wearing the uniform of former generals that they kidnapped and killed, and these same terrorists are negotiating or having meetings with the government.
All right.
I don't think that's a good strategy. I don't think that's a long-term strategy that will end up in our favor.
Let me squeeze in maybe 2 or 3 questions in one as quickly as I can. So, for those in the ruling party, Mr. Rosevival, they say that you and your friends in the opposition are perhaps behind some of these acts. I mean, I was listening to Ojuzo Kalu yesterday, Senator Ojuzo Kalu, on our flagship political program. He says those of you in the opposition are perhaps behind some of these kind of attacks, because he says that we see some of these kind of occurrences during a year or two to the elections, as it is happening now. This has played out before. How do you respond to that? And then my second question would be, if perhaps Mr. President is listening to you this morning and he decides to extend his hand of leadership to you. You are young, you're vibrant, you're smart, you're intelligent, Mr. Gbadebo Rosevival. Come on board and let's get to feel you help solve some of these challenges as we face as a people. Are you willing and available?
So the first question is a very, very disgraceful position for a politician to take, especially a politician from the APC government. It's extremely disgusting to hear, because I recall in 2015, these were the same people that went to call for the not only prosecution, but for America to come and invade and get involved in the situation in Nigeria by themselves. The situation was not a quarter as dire as we find it today. And I'm talking from the economic angle, to the value of our currency, the value of our business, the situation of inflation, to the security crisis, to even the attempt to destroy the opposition. I only wonder if the APC was the opposition today and the PDP were sending thugs to destroy any meeting that they were gathering at or trying to have, I can only imagine what they would have done, what they would have called the American government to do. So these are a disgraceful set of unpatriotic Nigerians that actually started this trend of getting a foreign national to come and have a say, or try and, I don't want to use the word invade, but actively come and step into the situation of another sovereign national. We then question the sovereignty of our country. They were the agents behind that. That's the first thing. And then secondly, you have not seen any opposition government or any opposition leader coming out to go and do anything that's similar to what the APC did when just before they took power, with Barack Obama in charge, with the situation Bring Back Our Girls, campaigning, going all the way to see the president in America and the government officials to put pressure on Goodluck Jonathan's government. You've not seen any of them do that. For the most part, they've shown themselves to be patriotic. They've shown themselves to be statesman-like.
Nigerians will argue that you're not doing enough.
So I say that again?
Nigerians will argue that those of you in the opposition are not doing enough. You're not united enough, and you're not pushing or mounting pressure on the current administration.
I can completely understand why Nigerians will say that, because we find ourselves in an extremely tricky situation. We find ourselves having to deal with external forces actively destroying opposition parties and having to fight that, at the same time come together as opposition parties to decide how we're going to move forward. So that's what we're doing. And there's a lot more to do. There's a whole lot more to do if we're going to rescue this nation. And everybody has to put their head down and get to work. So lastly, on the Kalu quotation, I say that the APC should stop projecting themselves on us. That they are unpatriotic Nigerians that have links to terrorism, that were threatening that they would destroy this country if they don't win elections, they should stop projecting on us. That's what they do. They're unpatriotic Nigerians. We are patriotic Nigerians. We want to see Nigeria that works for the people. We want to solve for the problems that affect Nigerians, not just the next election.
You have not answered my question.
The second question.
Yes, exactly. I was going to come to that. I said, go ahead, please, and answer that.
Sorry, remind me your second question.
I mean, I was asking that if Mr. President is listening to you this morning.
Yes. You see, the issue is the why. Your why matters. When a president comes in and says, now statistics we go chop, that does not show any vision or understanding of the problems, that talked about how he would just randomly recruit youth into the army and give them gari and corn to eat, as though we're in the 40s or the 50s, without understanding the time and seasons, that why would always hover over that government, because they did not come in to solve the problems of Nigerians. You see, when you want to solve the problems of Nigerians, you have to take time to understand those problems. And it will be coming out of you, not just the challenges, but the solutions. So you would go to debates, you would engage people, you would talk about this knowledge that you have. When you say now statistics we go chop, it shows that you were just concerned about the electioneering, not the governing, not governance. You are fantastic at the politics, but you are a complete failure at the governance. Now, I will not involve myself in a situation where leaders did not prepare for governance. To come in and fail at protecting people, fail in ensuring that our economy is solid, right? Fail in providing opportunities for the youth of this country, right? All we can do is continue to hold the government accountable, talk about ideas, talk about potential solutions. It's for them to adopt some of these solutions, and it is for them to stop focusing on the next election and start focusing on making the lives of Nigerians better. No matter what tribe you are, no matter where you reside in this country, the life of Nigerian must be precious. And that is what they must start to do now. And that is what the opposition party must continue to hammer, so that they understand that this is important and they'll be held accountable for every life lost in this country.
All right, Mr. Rotvaiva, as we begin to wind down, a couple of things I'd like you to address. Maybe if we have time, we'll touch on the economy briefly. But before that, staying on national security, if you go online, Nigerians will always look for, we humor ourselves a lot, no matter how deep or how challenging the situation is.
It's a coping mechanism.
Okay, so it's a coping mechanism. Okay, so you can see now a lot of people, especially Christians, showing content now where they're not carrying Bible and guns, Bible and machete, Bible and all of that, saying, look, since it has come to this point, self-defense is, in fact, I even heard a preacher from the South saying, look, the northern brothers should protect themselves, according to what he said. So you're seeing that people are beginning to lose hope. And maybe there's a nuance around self-protection for what they consider the balance of terror. If you come into my house and you know I have a gun, you will know that it's a 50-50. One of us may go down. So that will make you think twice. So that's where, do you think we should begin to have that conversation, especially in parts of the North where maybe we should begin to consider people arming themselves, not to just get killed, or this may just break down the entire system and resort to anarchy?
Yes, I don't even think it's just about parts of the North. You've seen abductions happening in Kwara, in Ogun State over the weekend. You saw some kidnappings come down. This thing is coming all the way down. It's not just about the North. When government continues to fail continuously, the people must take matters into their own hands. I've said this thing several times. From the destruction of institutions, destruction of the perception of the integrity of institutions, people start to lose hope in government. And you might feel that you are winning on the short term, but on the long term, people are going to have to take matters into their own hands. If they do not believe, if the people do not have a unified collective belief that they will get justice in the judiciary, if they do not collectively believe that the police will work in their interests and protect their lives and property, if they believe that the military will come and remove take away their protection or withdraw troops, and then shortly after, terrorists will come in and kidnap and kill people. At some point, the people have to take a stand. It is wickedness to ask people to just remain helpless when the government fails them. The whole idea of government and this social contract is that we're giving up some of our rights so that you can provide certain services and protect lives and property. Now, if government is failing to meet up with their side of the contract, then the people must take matters into their own hands. How many people have to die before we understand this fact has to become a reality? Until the government steps up, right? So I believe that this is a conversation that we must start to have. And I mean, people are not going to wait for the government to start buying generators when government not providing light. People do not wait for government to start before they start drilling borehole when government was not supplying them water.
Are you saying,
right?
Mr. Gbadebo Roosevelt, so let's be clear. Are you saying that, because my question is this a conversation that government should start considering? Because government is always afraid of anarchy. And are you saying that if you were in their position, because you also want power, you would not mind legislating about self-defense?
If I was in their position, my focus would be on the well-being of the Nigerian life, and this problem will never have gotten this far because I will not be focused solely on the next election. I'll be focused on protecting my people. My people get hurt, I'll be there, so people will know that the government is taking these things seriously, not just with empathy, but with strength. So I will not answer that question in that regard. I'm talking about this situation now because of the failure of government that we found ourselves in, right? And in this failure, if the government cannot sit up, then they start considering licensing firearms. But then you now ask yourself, if the same government is withdrawing protection from people before terrorists come in, will they license firearms? You see, the way they've run this thing has just left so much room for doubt and conspiracy and a lack of belief in their credibility as a government, right? And that's a very dangerous precipice to be as a people in a country.
All right, before I let you go, let's talk economy for a moment. And the focus will be what Alhaji Atiku Abubakar has raised. FIRS adding express payments as TSA collecting agent, onboarding them as they expand their responsibility. And now this has generated a lot of talk. He did an expansive write-up on his X handle, questioning the transparency and the credibility of the process. For him, middlemen, why? Because he's seeing it as a conduit for politically exposed persons who want to capture the state or state capture. That is his postulation as far as this issue is concerned, and is asking for transparency. Alpha Beta was mentioned somewhere in the mix. What do you make of this new arrangement by the FIRS, which has responded that they should leave them to do their work, they should not politicize tax collection in Nigeria?
You know, we've been talking about this Alpha Beta situation in Lagos for a very long time. People that are consultants are supposed to consult. And if you have to pay them a fee, you pay them a fee, and that should be the end of it. They should not be constantly taking chunks out of IGR when you have situation of security problems, you have situation of poor investments in our education, in our healthcare, but billions are going to consultants consistently every month. And what we have seen now is the alphabetization of Nigeria. And this was to be expected. I mean, people have talked about this, that this was bound to happen. Because you see a situation where this entity has hovered over the finances of Lagos for over 2 decades. Meanwhile, it is the LIRS that is doing majority of the work. So why would consultancies continue to extract so much money from our IGR when they can just give advice and let the LIRS that is being paid a salary as civil servants do the work? Why do we constantly need middlemen? And then they will then be at the helm of collecting some whatever percentage of resources from IGR when we are constantly borrowing money, we're constantly looking for ways to balance our budget. We should be trying to trim fat, but this is what we are adding right now at such a time in this country. It's completely disgraceful. The level of greed of the people in government is just something I cannot understand. And I believe that as people, we must stand against this.
All right.
We must ensure that the FIRS is equipped to do their job, right? And if you need consultants can come on a temporary basis. They give advice. It's just like you employ McKinsey or BCG. They don't come in and give you advice and then collect a chunk out of your profit for the next 20 years.
All right.
And those are the best consulting firms in the world.
It's always interesting to listen to you politicians talk, especially on this side of where you are now, this side of the divide where you are now. And then things will perhaps get to switch gears when you perhaps belong to the other part. But we must anchor at this point with you. Thank you indeed for your time on the program. Former Labour Party governorship candidate here in Lagos State, Mr.
I'll say something to that. You have to look at the antecedents of people. I've been consistent about this government, especially in Lagos. So switching gears is not something that I can associate with me. I get into office, I'll do my best. I stand by the principles that I've stood on for the last over a decade that I've been in politics now.
All right.
So you can be sure of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. We wish you all the best. We thank you for these assurances. We wish you all the best, you and your new party now, the ADC. And our message to them is that perhaps you can step up a bit more with your pressure on the ruling party.
I agree with you.
Thank you so much.
I agree with you 100%.
All right. Well, this is the morning brief. Let's get to switch gears now and talk about something that played out 4 days ago, November 20, the landmark and historic judgment delivered by Justice James Omotosho on Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, which has had to get a lot of Nigerians talking right here in the country and across the diaspora. We're back in just a moment. Please stay with us.
All right, welcome back. A few days ago, which was last weekend, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, was sentenced to life imprisonment on a 7-count charge, mostly bordering around terrorism. And that has generated a lot of conversation. Well, his legal team say they will definitely appeal that particular case. Well, that's a conversation we're about to have in just a moment with one of his legal counsel, Mr. Aloy Ejimako. Mr. Ejimako, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here with you today.
All right, Mr. Aloy, let's hear your interpretation of what played out in court. We were all witnesses to it, and I know that after the, is it 3 or 4 hours, I read the about 140 or so pages of the CTC that was released almost as soon as possible by the Honorable Judge James Omotosho. And there are different layers I would like to speak to. But let me give you the opportunity to give your own overview of what you make of this case. You've been on it. This is 10 years down the line, in between many things and many courts, all the way to the Supreme Court. I'm back here, and then finally here, giving it the initial closure, perhaps going all the way to the Supreme Court again.
Well, first of all, I have to make it clear that it appeared from 2021 that the deck was stacked against Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. The system, the entire system seemed to be against him, against what he was doing or what he was saying. The desperation of the system was evidenced in June 2021 when he was renditioned in breach of all canons of international law and laws of Nigeria and laws of Kenya. That is indicative of the desperation of the system towards him and against what he was doing. The system was intent on really doing him in, whether through any of the means, through any of the instruments that was available to the system. So it came to a head on 20th November, and to a lot of people, it's a surprise. But to those of us who are insiders, we discerned that this case was a very tough case to win. It was very tough, like I said, and it happened that on 20th November it played out. But right now, what we are faced with, or what everybody should be concerned about, is the post-judgment regime. Nnamdi Kanu still retains his constitutional right to fair hearing under Section 36 of the Constitution. That constitutional right is going to be expressed before the Court of Appeal. Or perhaps there could be some post-judgment maneuvers that could be made before the High Court. But for now, it is known, well known to the whole world, and to the court, the High Court, and to everybody else who is a stakeholder in this case, that Nnamdi Kanu has no legal counsel. So as I speak, he still represents himself. But see, after the sentencing, I was surprised, and I think everybody else who was monitoring this case was surprised that he was plucked from Abuja and taken all the way to Sokoto, which is in the northernmost part of northwest Nigeria. So you begin to ask, how can he effectively prosecute his appeal, or even take the initial steps towards initiating his appeal? Initiating an appeal is not an easy thing to do. He has to file a notice of appeal, he has to request for the transcripts of the record of proceedings before the High Court, pay for them, review them, and do all sorts of things, all sorts of activities that will now play out before the Court of Appeal. And these things require his personal, physical presence to get these things accomplished, unless he hires a lawyer. And up to this point, he hasn't indicated that he's going to hire any lawyer, or he has not made known to anybody that he has hired any lawyer. So you begin to wonder whether he will be able to prosecute this appeal from his prison location in Sokoto. The Sokoto division of the Court of Appeal doesn't have jurisdiction over this case. It's the Abuja division. So putting him in Sokoto, I know it's true. It is not the fault of the judge. It is the fault of the executive branch. Once someone is sentenced, it becomes the property of the executive branch, in particular the correctional service. So that decision to put him in Sokoto perhaps did not take into account these concerns that I'm expressing. It is very insensitive to his rights. Prisoners do have rights. That you are in prison doesn't mean you have lost your rights under Chapter 4 of Nigerian Constitution, your fundamental rights, in particular Section 36, which is really what is relevant now. Can Nnamdi Kanu effectively prosecute his appeal, or even initiate it from that location in Sokoto? The answer is no. So what I think may play out in the coming days or weeks is to seek ways and means of ameliorating the detention conditions. The judge did not particularly order that he be detained in Sokoto. There was only one prison in Nigeria that was excluded, and that was the Kuje prison. But, you know, if you check around Abuja area, the environs, there are other prisons in the vicinity. We have one in Suleja, we have in Kefi, and there are probably other prisons within 2 hours of Abuja. Those prisons would have been much better locations for detaining Nnamdi Kanu, to ensure that he's close enough to his relatives who are known to be in Abuja, his legal consultants if he still wants to deploy their services. Also, is also very close to the Court of Appeal in Abuja, which has jurisdiction over this matter, and so on and so forth. So we're looking at a situation where his right to appeal is being complicated by the current location of his imprisonment.
All right, Mr. Ajimako, a few things I would like you to address, because in this case apparently will get to appeal, as you've rightly put it. I don't know whether you're going to be his counsel. the choice of being a pro se litigant, I don't know whether you're privy to his reason, and I do not also know whether he's going to canvass new positions, because being a pro se litigant and not entering his defense is as good as saying I'm going into a boxing ring, I'm not going to fight. And he has his reasons, which is what I want to relay. And Section 36 of the Constitution 1999 as amended says that subject as otherwise provided by this Constitution, a person shall not be convicted of a criminal offense unless that offense is defined and penalty thereof is prescribed in a written law. And in this subsection, a written law refers to an act of the National Assembly or law of a state, any other subsidiary legislation, instrument under the provisions of this law. Now, if you go to some of the case laws being cited by even His Lordship, James Omotosho, some of those from the Supreme Court, from the Court of Appeal, you can see perhaps this is where Nnamdi Kanu was holding on to say what, because they charge him based on anti-terrorism law of 2013, which has been appealed. And perhaps some of these case laws he cited from the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, saying that when a law is repealed, it has no legal life, as far as the courts are concerned. The Honorable Judge cited this. But if you go to Section 98 of the Anti-Terrorism Prohibition Prevention Act of 2022, this is what gave the judge the leeway to be able to prosecute Nnamdi Kanu. If you read this, the Terrorism Prevention Act number 10 is repealed. Any regulation and all of that, I don't want to waste too much time, ongoing cases in court and blah, 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 you can see, and have effect as if made, issued, given, or done under the corresponding provisions of this act. This is the route which Justice James Omotosho passed through to say, let's even agree without conceding that the law is repealed, so we don't have any ground in terms of the pronouncement of the Supreme Court. But there is a proviso in the Anti-Terrorism Act, let me put it that way, Section 98, that says, if we've already started these proceedings before that act was enacted, although the one he was charged with was repealed, there's a provision to continue the trial. Is this something Nnamdi Kanu can be able to beat in court?
Let me begin to address this question this way. I'll give you an example. During the military administration, we had the Armed Robbery and Firearms Decree. Under that decree, if you committed armed robbery, you were not taken to the regular courts. You were taken to before a military tribunal. Tried in a summary manner, maybe within 2 or 3 weeks, and in some cases you'll be taken to your village to face the firing squad, or you'll be taken to the bar beach in Lagos to face the firing squad. But when the military administration ended and the civilian administration came in, that law was repealed. But it didn't mean, the repeal didn't mean that commission of armed robbery suddenly no longer became an offense. But you were no longer tried before military tribunals and taken to your village to be executed by firing squad. Your offense will be brought to be in conformity with the current law, which probably it may carry death penalty if you committed armed robbery, but this time it will be by hanging. And the procedure for trying you no longer will be a tribunal procedure empaneled by military officers, but in this case, it will be empaneled by judges, and you'll be tried in the regular courts. I believe this to be the closest analogy to Mazen Nnamdi Kanu's case in chief before Justice Omotosho. He was saying in effect that I'm not saying that the government does not have the right to prefer charges against me or to bring me before this court to try me. But by God Almighty, I should not be tried under a law or provisions of a law that was repealed as far back as 2022. So you have read Section 98. I'm familiar with it. It is arguable whether Mazen Nnamdi Kanu's case was an ongoing case as contemplated under that section that contained the saving clause. You see, there's an argument, which I think is very strong, that Mazen Nnamdi Kanu's case was close it ended effectively on 13th October 2022 when by virtue of the discharge by the Court of Appeal. That extinguished that case forever and placed a barrier to bringing the case back under a law that had then, some months before, been repealed. So when the case went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court vacated that judgment of the Court of Appeal, it was left for the government to bring the case in conformity with the current law, but not to proceed with the old. So Nnamdi Kanu was not saying that my offense has been extinguished by the repeal. He was saying, in effect, that the process or the law that should be applied to my case is the current law. I'll give you another example. When the Administration of Criminal Justice Act was enacted into law in 2015, Nigeria stopped using the Criminal Procedure Code. Nobody went back to Criminal Procedure Code from 2015 onwards till today. Everything that was happening under the Criminal Procedure Code was not automatically extinguished, but all of it was brought into conformity with the current law, which is the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. And I'll give you another example, which is very fundamental. Nigeria used to have a constitution before 1999, and that constitution is called the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1979. In 1999, Nigeria enacted a new constitution. From that moment in 1999 to the 1979 constitution, that 1999 constitution also contains savings clauses that acts done or purported to be done under the 1999 constitution remain valid. Apply the provisions of the 1970 be done after 1999. So this is the technology that will help our people to understand why Nnamdi Kanu was insisting that the repealed law should not be the law that should regulate the case against him. That was his case in chief. Thank you.
Mr. Jimoko, let me ask you, as his consultant and somebody who has represented him in court before he decided to defend himself and all of that, do you think that you and the lawyers around yourself who represented Nnamdi Kanu have failed him and have failed his wife and have failed the Southeast region? His wife, Uchechi, has also come out to criticize you and your colleagues that you didn't brief her that he was transferred to Sokoto. I wonder how you respond to that. And perhaps, what does this imply for the Southeast region, especially with 2027 just along the line?
Let me begin by saying a criticism of the performance of his lawyers, except one dribble that I saw from a disgruntled somebody who probably has a personal score to settle with one of the lawyers, or who has a personal score to settle with Nnamdi Kanu.
Mr. Jimoko, I think
that will be.
Yes, I think we lost connections with you for a few seconds. Can you go over that information again? And are you referring to his wife there?
Well, I'm saying Nnamdi Kanu was represented before Justice James Omotoshu's court. The defense was led by Chief Kana Agabi, a former Attorney General of the Federation. and a highly respected lawyer. I don't see anything he might have done that anybody would consider to be incompetent or that he did not do what he was supposed to do. So under him, all the lawyers did their best. He led the defense team well up until the time that Nnamdi Kanu decided to go solo and represent himself. But one feature that you must not miss in this case, the prosecution had from March to September to present his case. But when the case changed gear and Nnamdi Kanu disengaged his lawyers, he was given barely a total number of 13 days to make his case. And if you remove the weekends in those 13 days, he will be 9 to 10 days left for him to make his defense. And he had proposed that he would call 23 for him to call his. So this thing, made nonsense of that opportunity.
Oh dear. Mr. Jimako, maybe just, Mr. Jimako, can you hear us? We're not sure. The network seems to be obstructing the conversation, but we really want to get all.
I can hear you.
Apologies, it's not your fault. It's the network. Because while you were talking, at some point we couldn't hear anything you were saying. If you could just land.
I can hear you.
Yes, no, I know you can hear us, but the network distorted your whatever you were saying, so we couldn't hear you. Maybe you can just wrap up with just land on your thought on that one, on what you were saying. In addition, do you think it's wise for him to continue without a lawyer?
Well, like I said, there was a realization on his part that the deck was stacked against him, so he probably didn't want the lawyers to be the fall guy in the wall, and he wanted to go down fighting. I don't believe 1 million lawyers standing behind Nnamdi Kanu would have changed the outcome of the case.
Are you saying it was predetermined, or are you saying this justice is not according to law? Is that what you're implying?
No, that's not what I'm implying. I can give you an example of the trial of Jesus Christ. The people that brought Jesus Christ before Pontius Pilate already made up their mind. Even Pontius Pilate offered them to take someone else who also was condemned to death, that they should take that person and go and crucify him. They refused. That they said they wanted Christ. It was Christ they wanted to crucify. So the system already made up its mind that Christ was going to be crucified. I'll give you another example, that of Nelson Mandela in South Africa. Nelson Mandela was not tied to any act of violence in South Africa, but he was convicted anyway. No weapon was found against him, whatever. I think it was his force of personality that constituted enough threat to the state, that the state was convinced about his guilt way ahead of time. And that of Awolowo in the 1960s, Awolowo was convicted of attempt to overthrow the government of Nigeria. Was Awolowo a military officer? He was a civilian. There was no evidence laid in the case of Awolowo, the case of Awolowo, that indicated that he possessed the arms, the means and the opportunity to overthrow the government. But he was convicted, a civilian convicted for overthrowing the government, attempt to overthrow the government. That is absurd. And the judge said it as much. He said that his hands were tied in that case of Awolowo. So in this very case, I'm not saying that the judge is biased or the judge predetermined it, but it was palpable, it was in the air that the system was very determined to see that Nnamdi Kanu gets convicted. And it didn't start today. It started from the very day he was renditioned in Kenya.
We have to round off our conversation with you now. But when you say this, there are those who say that perhaps you're justifying the killings of over 30,000 Igbos and the killings of police officers who have either been injured or killed as a result of some of the words and instructions or insightful words that perhaps the court would hold on to. Do you think that Nnamdi Kanu should also take responsibility for some of these things that played out in the Southeast region? I mean, one of your leaders was on our program yesterday, Senator Ojuzo Kalu, and he even questioned even the character of Nnamdi Kanu in courts, for instance. So I wonder perhaps if you think Mazi should take responsibility for some of the actions, some of his actions. And finally, I asked you a question about the possible consequences of this judgment on the Southeast region, because you have been quoted as saying that the ruling party, APC, should forget about getting votes and numbers in the Southeast region. Is that correct?
Well, let me tell you this. It's very unfortunate and highly regrettable, and I feel very sad that lives were lost in Southeast. A lot of lives, innocent lives, the lives of security officers, and so on and so forth. But, you know, my thing is this, that the evidence laid before the court failed to make a connection, a clear connection, a clear nexus between Nnamdi Kanu broadcast and those the acts of violence or so-called acts of terrorism that occurred in Southeast that led to the loss of lives. You know, it is not insensitive to say it. Anybody that really would not be touched by the lives lost in Southeast or in any other part of Nigeria due to insecurity will be very, very insensitive. But by God Almighty, before we crucify a man for that, or we convict a man for that, we have to draw a clear parallel, a clear connection between what the man said, between what Nnamdi Kanu said, and the loss of those lives. There is an American adage that says that if the witch cried at night and the baby died in the morning, it doesn't mean that it is the witch that killed the baby. So it is very academic for us to dissecting this case here. The deed is done. I disagree with the conviction. I disagree with the verdict and the sentence. So whatever I'm saying here is a demonstration of my disagreement. But the judge might have found that he had sufficient evidence to back up the decision or the judgment that he rendered. But myself, as a lawyer, I personally did not see that clear connection between Nnamdi Kanu's broadcast and the violence that occurred in Southeast that claimed a lot of lives. And that violence is still occurring today. Is he still making broadcast?
Mr. Ajimako, my apologies, we're totally out of time. So that we are clear, we heard the judge, we heard him read those transcript where he said clearly that Nnamdi Kanu instigated the people, tell them, go here, kill them, do all the things he said. And indeed, it happened. So how do you absolve him of the deaths when he clearly said those things according to the statement of the judge?
Well, like at the beginning, I said, where do we go from here? We're not going back to the High Court to retry these cases. So we shouldn't be addressing this question in the context of trying to retry a case that has been tried and closed. The question you ask will be a question for the Court of Appeal to answer. So in doing an appeal, Nnamdi Kanu might be well advised to raise an issue, to raise a question for the Court of Appeal, whether what he had said, for instance, what you said that he said here, whether what he has said rose to the level or raised sufficient weight of evidence to ultimately blame him for the deaths that occurred in Southeast.
All right, Mr. Ajimako, totally out of time. It's not what I said, it's what we all listen to the judge. I have the CTC, we all have the CTC. It's a public document now, so it is what the judge used to convict him, connecting what he said to instigate and provoke people to act and lead to the death of military officers and innocent civilians. But that's the question, as I agree with you, the Court of Appeal will have to answer. We must thank you, Aloy Jimako, legal consultant to Nnamdi Kanu. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a break, and when we come back, we will be talking about governance and national security. Awal Rafsanjani of CISLAC will be joining us in just a moment. Stay with us.
we are back. It's the final leg of our conversation here on the Morning Brief. The Executive Director of CISLAC, that's the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, joins us live on the program. Mr. Awal Ibrahim Rafsanjani on the program. Thank you indeed, Mr. Rafsanjani, for joining us on the program this morning. You have been speaking about Nigeria, and you speak about Nigeria really very passionately. So when you look at this current administration, give us a scorecard of what you think in terms of governance and leadership, where we are on a scale of 1 to 10. My second question is the fact that you have somehow connected insecurity or linked insecurity to issues around corruption, mismanagement of finances, and abuse of power. Walk us through how that works.
Thank you very much, and good morning, viewers. We are really in a very, terrible situation in this country, where human lives don't matter, where people think that they have the right to take other people's life or destroy their properties. And this happening across the country from different forms of criminality in this country. So also, because of the entrenched corruption in the security sector, which we have been calling for government to address, unfortunately, it has also become a source of making money for some people. And like joke, the thing has eaten the fabric of our society. So until we rise up to deal decisively with corruption in the security sector, also improve in terms of policing by ensuring that we have the necessary facilities and equipment and even the personnel, by also ensuring that we motivate the personnel that are also putting their lives, because I can assure you that Nigerian security, they don't have life insurance. If they get killed, even for their families to get their entitlement, they will pass through corruption, extortion, delay, and all sorts of frustration. So even those ones that have retired, you see them every day, they are coming out for one protest or the other because their entitlement is not given. Now, with such kind of situation, there's no way you can be able to defeat the criminality that you are having in the country. Because even from the recruitment process, you have not also been able to do the right thing. Because a situation whereby people have to pay bribe to obtain the forms, and even pay bribe to get posted to what they call lucrative places, a situation whereby people have to pay bribe to get promotion, not necessarily on merit. So these are all part of the thing that have give up to find us where we are in the lackadaisical situation about the security sector, coupled with the fact that you do not have shared intelligence, you do not have coordination, partnership, collaboration, and on top of it, there's a total loss of confidence on the Nigerian people to the security personnel because of the outright extortion and incriminating Nigerians even when they volunteer to provide information that will lead to addressing security breach. So also, you also have the challenge of the government not bothered about early warning and early response mechanism, because every violence conflict in this country, you have signal, you have a pointer to the fact that something was going to happen. But because of the lack of timely intervention, you allow such kind of situation to go, and at the end of the day, we lose life and properties. So, equally important, Nigerians have been talking about the fact that we need to prioritize the security We thank the president. Yesterday he announced that police that are guiding VIPs, including Yahoo people, would now be withdrawn. We hope that will work, because we know in this country, one person is having like 10 to 15 policemen guarding him. He is not even a government official. But because of misplacement of priority, and because they have refused to also place the police in ungoverned spaces, we have absence of police or absence of law enforcement agents in where we need them to protect Nigerians. So I hope that Mr. President directive will be taken, and that it should not be a selective, because a situation whereby you see some people carrying police to even go to club, to go to all sorts of lounge and all sorts of places, whereas communities are lacking police, they are lacking presence of security agencies. I think we need to do something about that. Again, we need to also ensure that these roadblocks that the police are in everywhere, and yet criminality is going on immediately you move to the next checkpoint. I think we need to do something. When you commercialize and privatize security sector for public safety, it's a problem. So I think for me, there's need to do a lot in terms of the security sector reforms to overcome the challenges that we are facing, which now led us to this embarrassment that some countries are calling us disgraced country.
All right, Mr. Rafsanjani, I know that CISLAC is big on transparency. And one of the things that we've discovered is that if we don't tell ourselves the brutal truth, this cycle will continue. I know a video came up the other time. I remember it was Senator Dino Melaye. If you listen to him, he's no longer in the Senate. If you listen to that video, what he said on the floor of the Senate, as at the time he was at the Senate, you think is happening now. That means we've been here before, maybe a couple of times. What says we will not be here again if this blows over? And we cannot continue in this cycle until we're brutally honest. So absolutely, in the spirit of transparency, I've listened to literally all sides for and against this conversation, including what happened at the subcommittee level at the Congress. And 4 things stood out, which I want you to speak to. I highlighted it this morning in terms of transparency. First is the fact that it is almost disingenuous and borderline evil to deny that there's no form of Christian genocide in the mix of the complexity. It's almost disingenuous to say there is not an economic problem. Herder, farmer, climate change issues, people are trying to survive, both farmer and herder. There's also the geopolitics element. It's also true that there's a geopolitics element. We may just be a playing field for the geopolitics, for our rare minerals. There's also the criminality. So these are like the 4 drivers. Maybe they have sub-drivers, I do not know. If you were to address this transparently, how do we start? Because what is happening now is the fact that when you talk about the genocide, the Muslims say they kill us as well. That is a fact. In fact, I believe some part of the country, maybe more Muslims are killed in this whole sense, and some more Christians are killed. I don't think the debate is over who is killed more than the other. It's just to stop the killing. So how do we address this brutally, honestly?
Thank you very much. I think this is what civil society have been advocating. If you look at what Amnesty International Nigeria and a whole lot of other civil society like CISLAC have been advocating, is that, look, we must stop killing, irrespective of whatever forms it is, whether it is religious killing, whether it is political killing, whether it is ethnic killing, whether it is whatever form of killing. Human lives is human lives, and Nigerian government has the responsibility to ensure that they protect lives and properties of Nigerians. So whatever nomenclature you give it, human lives is a human life, and it must be protected. That's number 1. Number 2, I think it is also important that we deal with this issue squarely. You have a lot of money budgeted to deal with the insecurity in this country. No accountability whatsoever. In fact, it wasn't the matter. Even Mr. President himself, he said he was not going to prove money given to the security agencies, to do with the insecurity, despite the fact that Nigerians have not seen, much that needed to be, done from the security personnel because of course, corruption. Today, as I speak to you, go to National Assembly, no budget is passed without those elements of corruption, because a committee will come and they will ask the various ministry or prestator to put certain things that are not actually, even part of what the government had actually, planned for, and no consultation with the members of the National Assembly to say, okay, because of our informed oversight, there are money that we need to either block somewhere, or there are money that we need to add. Because part of the reason why you do oversight is to find out whether the appropriation or the funds that you have provided to a particular agency, whether it's sufficient or whether it's insufficient, whether it is unnecessary. Then through the oversight, you come and then take informed decision during the budgetary allocation. Today, it is like almost an envelope, not on the basis of need assessment. Secondly, you have a huge amount of money that are being stolen in this country in the names of the security board. You cannot continue to, turn public taxpayers' money into a personal money that's no audited account on this money, no supervision, no oversight, no information whatsoever about it. So you cannot continue to go this way. And then at the same time, this personnel that you are supposed to ensure that they have the necessary resources or facilities, they are not given. We are wasting, our policemen, we are wasting our soldiers, and to worsen the matter, because of all this, corruption or trying to, annex or trying to corner the security sector by one segment of the security, agency, you are not able to have the necessary coordination and shared information. And that is why you see that even the army are overstressed in this country. They are in operation in virtually every part of the country. There's no way you can take the roles of internal security matters that are supposed to be done by the police, DSS, and other internal security personnel to now sole responsibility of the army. At the same time, the army will now be facing external threat from Nigeria. So I think, couple of number of issues that must be addressed. Again, this issue of political will that we are talking about, because if there's a political will, the impunity you see in these killings will stop. When people are killed, commission of inquiry will be set up, recommendation will be drawn, nothing is going to be implemented. So the communities have lost confidence that when they are, killed, when they are attacked, they are not going to get justice. And some people, they will even sponsor this killing. So there are a number of issues that are not working very well, and that if we are honest and sincere, like you said, we must fix those things before we think that this problem can go over. It cannot go over if you continue with this impunity and corruption and incompetency and dishonesty and broken trust between the Nigerian people and this thing.
We are absolutely pressed for time. Maybe a yes or no question. This issue around the school closure in Kebbi and Niger State, you have faulted the government's and criticized the government's approach. Do you think the school should have been closed? Yes. Just a yes or no?
Well, I think, first and foremost, like we mentioned, there's early warning. Communities have mentioned the presence of some of these people. Government should have taken position, should have taken quick action to bring in security, either to close down the school or to protect the schools. But we didn't see that happen.
All right. Well, we have to leave it here at this time, but thank you indeed, as always, for your time, insights, perspectives on the program. Mr. Wal Musa Rafsanjani is the Executive Director and the head of CISLAC and the head of Transparency International Nigeria. Thank you indeed, as always, for your time on the program.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, so this is where we have to anchor at this point. It's always interesting to discuss these issues of national interest. We hope that in the coming days and weeks, things will get better. I feel for those children in the northern part of the country where it appears that education is under a very serious threat. Well, that's the program, everyone. From Lagos, Nigeria, I am Kelly Egiga.
All lives matter, and we'll continue to mainstream until government do what they are supposed to do. They are trying, but they need to do even more than what they've done so that our lives are safer and better. Thank you for your time and company. Sunrise Daily is up next at the top of the hour. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.